Alcohol on Cape Town's beaches has always been a contentious issue, but this festive season, it seems beachgoers went to extraordinary lengths to smuggle it in. Cape Town authorities seized more than 6,000 bottles of alcohol, with some people even burying bottles in the sand or disguising them in cool drink containers. However, these enforcement efforts have not been without drama, with police even coming under attack in Fishhook. To unpack how the city is managing beach safety and the challenges of enforcement, we're joined by Cape Town's MMC for Safety and Security, JP Smith. JP, good to speak to you. Now, give us a sense of why alcohol enforcement is such a critical issue for Cape Town's beaches.
There are some things you can only do reactively in the case of crisis, when people get into near drowning situations. And we have had, my understanding is since the beginning of the festive season, 5 drownings on our beaches. And those are tragic. But there is only so much you can do once that situation starts. There are, however, certain things you can do proactively to prevent the crises and problems from happening in the first place. One of those this year was for us to deploy our 890 cadets out of our Project 1000 onto our various beaches and recreation facilities, swimming pools, etc. around the city, and as well as our hotspots. The other matter was, or intervention, is to focus on alcohol. On the roads, of course, with roadblocks and a lot of enforcement, and random stops, and on our beaches to prevent the alcohol from coming onto the beaches in the first place. City bylaws do prohibit alcohol on the beaches, and so we do try and prevent that. When people climb or out of a vehicle with a crate of beer, we make sure that that crate is intercepted or that they are referred back. They're welcome to go and party at home, but no alcohol or, for that matter, glass on the beaches. As such, people find all kind of creative ways to sneak it inside fruit, in cool drink bottles, in babies' gear, and one occasion even in a flask where the person pretended to be blowing on the contents to cool it down as the law enforcement officers approached him to pretend that it wasn't alcohol. So people get very creative around this time of year.
Clearly interesting times at JP, but one of the reasons that you are preventing individuals from bringing alcohol onto the beaches is because you'd like to protect their safety. They're not as safe intoxicated as they are if they aren't. But walk us through about individuals that come to the beaches already intoxicated. Is there any way of dealing with them?
So the reason for prohibiting alcohol on the beaches, as you partially answered, is a focus on safety. Once people are drunk on the beaches, a number of other things invariably follow. One of them is drownings. Over the years, as we've clamped down on alcohol, we've seen our drowning numbers drop dramatically to a 6th or 7th or 8th of what they used to be year on year. So that's definitely a major factor. Accidents, people get to become inebriated, do irresponsible things. They dive off things and injure themselves. So keeping alcohol out of the equation is important. It's also, these beaches are family beaches. On some of these beaches, you can have in excess of 50,000 people on that beach. Many of them are families. They want to have fun time. They don't want an antisocial person disrupting their behavior. And of course, the other thing is pedestrian fatalities. Many of our fatalities are pedestrians on the roads, and they're inebriated. So walking from the beach afterwards also creates those problems. And so keeping the alcohol off the beach is a critical problem. Yes, people do arrive at the beach drunk already. In some cases, and to be drunk in public is an offence in law. And so we do attempt to deal with those individuals before they even start. If they fall down drunk, there is the opportunity of enforcement action rather than letting that person become a danger to themselves and others on the beach.
Well, you talk about individuals coming in inebriated and potentially becoming a challenge. How do you ensure that enforcement efforts don't alienate or escalate tensions with beachgoers?
That's about civics training. A big part of the training of our enforcement staff is to make sure that they try and de-escalate situations, that the way in which they conduct themselves towards the public is positive. We have done a lot of training as part of our core training now for our new Metro Police staff, including these cadets who were on the beaches and in communities these last month and a bit, and will still work for another portion of the festive season. and to teach them about interpersonal skills, the role of the police in society, and make sure that they understand that they're the servants of the public and not the other way around, so that we take the right professional attitude. That doesn't always work. There are some people who you cannot de-escalate, and so it may occasionally be necessary to take stronger action. It did occur with SAPs on Fishhook Beach that they came under attack, and our enforcement services had to assist. And it also happens that our staff get into altercations. I will say that the people, when I was on the beaches with enforcement staff, where we encountered people with alcohol, they understood that they were doing wrong and did not fight the surrendering of the alcohol, which then gets taken to the pound, and you can go back to the pound afterwards and collect your alcohol there. There is a strict auditing system to make sure all the alcohol ends up back at the pound, and of course you will pay a fine.
Now, you've talked about trying to prevent any number of casualties on these beaches in Cape Town. What are the numbers looking like? Have there been any reports of casualties over the last few days?
Drownings, yes, to date 5. Some of those happen at areas along the coastline that are not designated swimming areas. So people go and choose to swim at an area that is maybe not suitable, that has strong cross tides or undertow, that has hidden rocks. We do warn people that they swim at these areas at their own risk. There are designated areas with lifeguards. We have 340 lifeguards on our coastline and around the same number at our municipal swimming pools across the city to ensure people's safety. But some people do choose to go to places that are less safe, and they do place themselves in harm's way. And as such, we did unfortunately see 5 drownings since the beginning of the festive season, tragically. And sadly, some of those were alcohol related.
Very, very sad to hear. Can you give us a breakdown of those that passed away? We're looking at men, women, young people. What is that breakdown looking like, JP?
Generally males and generally younger men. Although this time it ran the spectrum from small children to middle-aged men. And in the case of the one middle-aged man, a person who had been repeatedly warned by lifeguards that he was engaged in risky behavior and that he was inebriated. He was borderline inebriated, but then did something very dangerous to himself and became a fatality. We do try our best to work with these, but as you also said, there is the issue of escalation. So it's always a fine line between trying to get people to be responsible and escalating a situation. In that case, we were not able to intervene effectively. But I will tell you that our staff had really had their hands full. We've had very positive feedback from the public by and large around the conduct of the staff and their interventions on the beach. So we've had actually a comparatively peaceful season. Additional numbers definitely help. A significant presence of law enforcement makes people less inclined to challenge an enforcement situation. If it's only one officer, they're perhaps more emboldened. So the additional numbers definitely help. And a lot of continuous awareness and communication and reminding people that we are there for their safety. We're not trying to be buzzkills. We want them to have fun. We just want them to have fun and be safe and happy memories afterwards, not be mourning a tragedy.
Now, coming back to this incident which you spoke of, where this inebriated individual obviously did not listen to the lifeguards. Walk us through the standard operating procedures for such individuals. Now, I don't imagine that it's easy by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, you talk about having as many as 50,000 people on the beaches or on some of the beaches of Cape Town.
So there's a very significant length of coastline here. We've got 309 kilometers of coastline, 16 swimming beaches that are popular. And those beaches can each contain between 40 and 80,000 people on a really busy day. The wind has been capricious this time in Cape Town, but we did have some sweltering hot days where people ended up in big numbers on the beaches. So you're basically dealing with a large number of concurrent major events happening simultaneously, and that is very challenging in terms of management and really did push our staff to the limits. We had a lot of staff we brought on overtime. We used drones and the eye in the sky to monitor, including for people who ended up in the swell or in the ocean further back than they should, who were maybe at risk. And as such, we were able to intervene in a lot of near drownings. But when a person becomes a danger to themselves or to others, there will be initial warnings. And if the person remains uncooperative, then eventually law enforcement may be called in to help. And it was such a situation that SAPS found themselves in on Fishhook Beach, where this person and friends then became riotous. And friends joined in on an attack on SAPS members, and the city staff had to intervene. We fortunately have had very few such incidents. If you consider the large numbers of people along coastline and that people can sometimes arrive already inebriated, it's actually quite remarkable that things are all as peaceful as they are. We do pride ourselves on running the coastline and all the other recreation facilities, having presence at our malls, maintaining a robust presence in high-risk communities so that everybody across our city can have a quality festive season, not just visitors. The Cape Townians alike, we made sure that at swimming pools and spray parks and otherwise, and large park facilities, that we had a presence there too, and of course on the roads throughout, to try and reduce those fatalities. The National Minister announced a couple of weeks ago that even by the middle of December, there had been 74 people who had lost their lives on the Western Cape roads already. So inconsiderate driving behavior, and of course, cell phones, distracted driving, speeding, alcohol, and just impatience, unfortunately, do cost lives. And we are at the moment constantly broadcasting and reminding people to be safe, to be considerate, to keep off the cell phone, and to rest regularly as they now start journeys back home for those who visited Cape Town.
JB Smith, Cape Town MMC for Safety and Security. Appreciate your time.